We on time yet? I'd like to call this meeting to order tonight. This is the work session for the City Council, August the 7th, 2023, and it is now 6:31 maybe. But without that, we'll go ahead and get started. Just as a matter of a roll call, all council members are here tonight, so that's a good thing, I think. Is that a good thing? Okay, all of you had the agenda for a few days. We need to have a motion to approve the agenda or change, delete, add, whatever.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, agenda is approved. Okay, we'll move next to Planning and Development Committee report. Ms. Linda Dodd.
Mayor, I have no actual items at this time.
Okay. Well, I would like to announce, if you would like me to, that Linda has missed a couple of meetings because her husband of how many years?
52.
52 years, passed away recently, and she has handled that with so much grace. I just am awed, really. So
It's hard.
it's hard, darn right it's hard. It's never a great time either, I know. So that said, we'll move right to Finance Human Resource Committee. Ann Hunsinger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Linda, we've missed you. I'm glad you're back. Mr. Mayor, I have two things on my agenda. The one is 3 Ford trucks for the purchase of our staff. They're from Allen Vigil. They are per government contract. They are in budget. So anybody have any questions? I think who they're for is on the top right. Yep. So we've got code enforcement, I think Robbie, code enforcement, and Public Works, Jeremy.
So there's 2 for code enforcement and 1 for public works?
Correct. Well,
No,
Robbie is not code enforcement.
planning development,
He's
code
P&D.
enforcement,
Okay,
and
all right.
public works.
Okay, question, I saw it was 2024 vehicles.
Right.
Have we got to order them? Are they on the lot
Are
or
they here?
they're here? Well, I was afraid of. Are they catching them up pretty good? Used to be like 18 months, which is crazy.
Yeah. He needs a mic.
Yeah, you didn't know Mike, Ross. There's your mic, to your right, left.
Just
Left,
come to the
right.
podium, Ross. Just come to the podium, please. That's the first time.
Wish he hadn't answered now.
Can I turn the mic on?
We're breaking you in, this is Ross a few times first.
Hello.
That's better.
There you go.
Just- All right, but yes, they would have to be ordered, and we have a very small window on when to order them. And it's closing really, really fast, and that's the way Ford does it, about all their vehicles now on government pricing. So I think it's by the end of August is when the window will close. And Ford can change that at any time. They can
Right.
say, we'll close it tomorrow, but it's just the way nature thing is, the way the world is nowadays, so.
Hey, could you tell me which one of these vehicles is for which department, please?
Sure, there at the
No,
right-hand
well,
corner
well, I
there.
know, but I'm looking at the front page.
Yeah, the front page.
So the 150 Super Duty with an
Oh,
8-foot bed?
you're looking at,
I'm looking at the very front page.
okay, the cover sheet. The first one with the 8-foot bed, that would be for Public Works. Jeremy Armstead's the director of
Yes,
that.
Jeremy.
That's for his crew. They're needing a new truck,
Yeah, they certainly
pretty
do.
seriously, and especially with the 8-foot bed with all the
Right.
equipment they tote. Second one is for code enforcement. Is requested that the code enforcement officer gets a new vehicle because he needs a 4-door cab for the extra room. He don't really have an office to work out of. His truck is his office, and with the amount of equipment he has to tote and take care of, he needs, what I understand, he needs that 4-door vehicle.
Okay.
And then last but not least, the Plan and Development Department, they have 5 employees in that department with only 1 vehicle, and that it gets passed around, shared a whole lot. They could definitely stand another vehicle. So, and that's just a single cab, regular V6 pickup truck, no thrills, just regular truck. All these is about as basic as you can get.
Right, now the code enforcement one, because the other two, I'm sure they'll just put them into their fleet because they need more vehicles anyway. The code enforcement is to replace his vehicle. What will happen to his vehicle that he's driving now?
We'll either reevaluate where we can put it in, because I think it's still in pretty good shape. We've been doing the maintenance on it, staying up on top of it. So it should be able, I'm not sure exactly where we'll put it, but I promise you, we need it
Right, I was
somewhere.
just wondering if we couldn't have recycled it for the planning and development department.
Well, we might, that might be something we could do, look at. But, like I said, this is what I felt like, what way
Okay.
we needed to go for right now. Like I said, that truck will be used, I promise. It
Okay.
won't be just sitting around.
Thank you.
Okay?
Ross, all these were budgeted, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's good enough.
Anybody have any other questions? Are you okay with putting this on consent? Okay.
Put it on consent.
All right, Mr. Mayor, the second thing I have, and this is in your packet, this is a standard engagement letter for McNair, McElmore, Middlebrooks and Company. They're in Macon. This is to do our financial statements, et cetera. This is our standard auditing engagement letter that's just come up. Anybody have any questions on that? If no questions, can we put this on consent as well?
When I was reading it, I didn't see where they put a price on
They
it.
don't. We don't
Is
have
it the
that
same price we thinking, Danny?
Yeah.
Same
Yeah, I
price?
thought I saw 46,000. There is a price.
There you go, 46.6.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
46,000.
There was a price, it was
46,500.
46,005, and then it
Okay.
said additional fees for non-attest services at $1,500.
It's on page 6.
Okay, that's been the standard pricing?
Everybody okay with that on consent as well?
Yep.
Thanks, Melanie. Jay? Yeah. Okay. Then, Mr. Mayor, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ann. Very good, we'll move to Public Safety Committee. Jay Boland.
Thank you, Mayor. Nothing for you this evening.
Okay. Thank you, and we'll move to Public Utilities Transportation Committee. Bill Duvall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the first item on the agenda is the Eleonora subdivision fence appeals. Was Brandon going to read anything, or
He can if you'd like, if you want him to state what's going on.
I mean,
for
I
the
can
public.
say,
Brandon, you want to state for the record?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So we had 8 residents over in Eleanor that installed some privacy fencing on a drainage easement. I think somehow code enforcement got involved and found that there was a fence that was built without a permit, which led to some of the other residents us finding out that there were some other ones that were built without permits as well. And then through further investigation and looking at plans and stuff like that, we found out that they were installed on a drainage easement. So we reached out to the homeowners. They applied for a administrative modification, which we denied, basically because of our development regs state that nothing can be built on a drainage easement. Plus on the as-built, it also stated that, no structures can be put on a drainage easement as well. So in that process, the homeowners had filed for an appeal for you guys to ultimately make a decision on whether the fences can remain or can be removed, or need to be removed.
so I'm going to back up and start, so where this all began. So obviously we have, there's storm water ordinances, so that when a development comes in and we want to retain that water as best we can, so on the site before it leaves. Because what we don't want to do is we don't want to push, when a storm comes in and you have all this new impervious area, we don't want to push that out into the streams and cause flooding elsewhere. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, you know, the developer, the engineer put together this plan to channel the water in areas that are like drainage easements, and also into your stormwater basins that end up into your detention basins. And, you know, Bill Brazel and his team they're out there checking those and making sure those are all in compliance. And what they did is they ran across this scenario where there's these drainage easements that run behind these houses, and that water basically is running off. And so the easement, you know, one, it allows it to infiltrate. Two, it directs it to the storm drain, which directs it to the detention pond. But then it also directs it away from, you know, you're not going to retain some water on one homeowner's not going to take water and push it off on some other owner's property. So, you know, that's a pretty complex scenario. Certainly in this case, there's numerous drainage easements throughout the neighborhood. So I want to also take, just like Brandon said, so these privacy fences were constructed, and so no, there weren't any permits requested, were there?
No, sir.
But now, all the homeowners that have applied for this appeal, have they been told that, I mean, do they understand that permits are required?
Yes, they do now. Mhm.
Sure. So that is an issue that I think that we definitely need to resolve as well. But also, there's, you know, there's also, you know, you have to look at it from the engineering sense is what's happened to that water, but also from, you know, we got to decide what to do with it in this case. But I mean, it also has implications throughout our city. So just to kind of add a little bit to it there of what's going on. Did you have some questions on it?
I do have some questions because, and I'll ask probably Tim, is this not the neighborhood that came to us, I think in 2021, and asked because his land was actually encroaching in some wetlands and things, and he actually wanted to be able to, is this not that neighborhood? Is this the neighborhood across the street?
That's a crossing down, I think.
Yeah, they never came to us.
Okay, they didn't? Okay, because I
asking
wasn't
for-
sure, because there was two neighborhoods being built
Yeah,
right
they
directly
do
across
have
the street.
wetlands on the back of their property, but they didn't ask for any type variances for that wetland.
Okay, and then Brandon, you said what brought this to your, what started this that brought this to your attention?
Code enforcement.
Code enforcement did?
Yeah.
He
Okay,
probably received a complaint normally, does he not?
I'm not exactly sure how.
That's
it-
normally
how
what
it
triggers.
transpired.
well, I read every one of the letters and the things from the 8 residents over there, and they all said the same thing, was that their HOA or the developer never made them aware that there's a drainage easement back there.
Well, so, that's unfortunate, but also, you know, when you buy a house, you pay to have you got a plat that comes with it that explains it.
Correct.
In this case, it's unfortunate that, I mean, I read them too, and they said, yeah, well, I hired a professional contractor or reputable contractor. You know, you would think a reputable contractor is gonna, you know, when you go to build something, you need to build it inside the lines, right?
Right.
And I read one thing that they said, talking about, well, they hired a surveyor to do it and didn't identify it. Well,
Right, well,
you know,
that's the road I'm going down here,
exactly,
so.
that's
You
unfortunate as well.
know, you know, what we're looking at is a situation where you have 8 people that, again, ignorance of the law doesn't excuse you from that, correct, Paul? I mean, just because you're not aware of the law, doesn't excuse you from adhering to the law.
So generally, if laws have been published or produced, put in the public record, then it's what we call constructive knowledge. We all have constructive knowledge of the rules by which we're supposed to live, albeit the fact that there are a lot of them and that many people don't know what those specific rules are. But yes, constructive knowledge of the rules and regulations.
Right, so now we've sitting here, I drove through there, I spent about 30 minutes in there yesterday. I took pictures of each one of these addresses and their fences and looked at everything, and I noticed that there's still multiple houses that don't have fences that will probably want fences. There's 12 houses still under construction. Those people are gonna move in. So the people that didn't get permits and everything, I just feel like if we allow them to be able to leave their fence, then how are you going to require the other people to adhere to the law if you're not applying the law evenly across the board? Is that where you're going, Bill?
Well, it's really, I mean, it's really an open discussion because it's where do we go for, in this case? You know, because you're right, there are implications, as I said, for the rest of the subdivision, but also in other areas as it develops in the city.
And a lot of these letters, it said that they were told to build them 1.5 to 2 inches off the ground. And I didn't get out, obviously, I'm not gonna trespass on somebody's land, but from the street, a lot of these fences are sitting directly on the dirt. They're not above to allow the water, so they are gonna trap water. And then another thing, this might be for Tim and Robbie, I noticed a lot of the fences that were in question here, this property owner may have stopped here. There's like a gap, maybe of 1.5 to 18 inches. Who's gonna cut the grass in between there? So that's gonna become a code issue anyway, which is irrelevant to this situation, but I noticed that we've got a lot of piecemeal fences
Right,
over
and
there.
there's no requirement of how far your fence has to be off your property line. I mean, you can put your fence on your property line, and that's what a lot of people do. They'll, you know, go in halves on the fence between the property and then, you know, split the difference on that and then put the rest of their fence in. But, I mean, however far your fence is off your property line, you're still responsible for
Right.
that 6 inches.
Well,
However
I've
you
had
get
that
in there to
question
cut
was-
it, you're still
Yeah, that question's
responsible for it.
irrelevant to this, but I just noticed that that looks like that's gonna be a problem. But, you know, it seems like if the HOA, which at this point in time, and somebody, I guess, Paul, maybe you can answer this, the subdivision is not completed. So is the HOA owned and controlled by the developer at this point?
I can't answer that without reviewing
Okay.
records. Usually, the way HOAs are governed, usually,
Right.
is that there's a cutoff point, 75%, 80%, that when the property is so built out, then the developer retains control as declarant of the HOA and the community until they hit a point, and then they transfer control over to the HOA. I have not reviewed
Right.
this particular HOA, so I can't speak to that.
Yeah, because where I was looking at is if the HOA and the developer were telling them there's no development easement, that maybe they, instead of coming here, they need to be maybe looking at their HOA or their builder to pay for the cost of relocating those fence lines.
Brandon?
I'm sure that will happen as the thing progresses, depending on what our decision is, or your decision is.
And just point of clarification, council, so this is an appeal from, for these 8 property owners from a decision of your code and utilities department. So they've filed an appeal under your development regs. There's no specific formal structure for how appeals are governed there, just states in the normal ordinary course. So it would be appropriate to allow any of those applicants that wish to speak to have an opportunity to speak, to be heard on the matter, so that they have had an opportunity to basically utilize any and all appeal options that they have. So if you, this is your work session, you obviously have the right to take action tonight, but if you're planning on taking any action tonight or on Thursday, regardless, I would suggest that you provide an opportunity for the homeowners to address the council, either tonight or Thursday night. That's within your purview as to when.
So, Brandon, new homeowners move in to our city, build a fence, they got caught, right? Because a lot of people build fences without permits, right? I know 50 of them, okay? So they unfortunately got caught. Is it because it was on the,
I want to object to that phrase of getting caught because no one did anything to get
oh, I didn't mean it like that. I didn't mean it like that. So, what's the word? They're on easement, right? Is that why they were like, I can't use the word caught?
What
Yeah,
triggered
like
the
what,
code enforcement?
what, because
I
to
don't
me, they're just building a fence, okay, and they didn't get maybe a permit, but a lot of people don't do that. But is it because it's on the easement that this is what caught code enforcement?
I don't have an answer for that. I don't know if code enforcement was just riding through and saw the fence and it caught it and thought that maybe.
But are
they'd
they
check.
all on easements or just the one?
All these are that filed the appeal.
Well, Brandon, let me ask you, they each have most of them use this Clark and Carter, and it says right there, if you look over here.
This is from the developer, because this is to GB.
Okay.
I think they
So
might
this,
have put that one,
okay,
but not the
okay.
homeowners.
Oh, the homeowner, this
Yeah,
isn't
'cause
what the
that would, like,
homeowner,
not
okay, because,
miss
yeah,
the
because it
point.
says right
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
DE drainage easement, that's
Right.
what I thought, I mean, if they're,
No, I don't think.
okay, that makes it a lot more clear, because it says that they got, surveys, but we don't have the surveys from the homeowners then, we didn't get copies of those, is that correct?
I don't
To
think
see if
so.
it was marked on theirs, we didn't get copies of that,
I don't
because
know
they're
if all the
marked on
homeowners-
all of these.
I don't know if they submitted a survey.
And how long have the fences been up?
I'm not sure. I think maybe, Tim, would you know?
Looked like most of the comments was
Yeah, in the
either late
comments.
22 or early 23.
Yeah, they hadn't, I mean, it hadn't been a year, I don't believe, but yes, code enforcement was going through the neighborhood and noticed the fences, and he contacted our office to see if permits had been pulled, and they hadn't, and that's when he issued the notices of violation. They came to the office to get permits, and once we pulled the HLPs on the property, which is what y'all have, that shows the drainage easements, then we had to deny the permits because they had put their fences up in the drainage easements, and that's when they applied for the modification from the utilities department.
Right. And see-
So-
go ahead.
So this is kind of how I feel like this is summarized. We have 8 homeowners plus future homeowners that through no fault of their own, through the best of intentions, built a fence on our drainage easement. Is that correct?
On the drainage easement.
It's not
On
our
the
drainage.
drainage easement. Well, the our being the city, but I mean,
It's not the city's
not
drainage
city
easement,
drainage
it's private property in HOAs.
okay, it's the HOA's drainage easement. So nobody intentionally did anything wrong to get caught. I mean, I hear you. Here's my 2 issues with it, if we approve it. First of all, the HOA isn't really responsible, even though they gave their okay, they're not responsible to make sure that somebody follows the law. By the same idea that if somebody wanted to build an outbuilding or a deck and they should have had a permit, the HOA may approve the design, but it's not the HOA's responsibility, and I'm cautious in here when we start talking about retention ponds and what's the HOA is responsible for, which is a different issue, but I don't want to continue to pour on responsibility to an HOA that is basically a group of volunteers trying to make their neighborhood nice. But my bigger issue is, if there's ever a drainage issue, what happens if we allow these and they need to get to it?
So in that case, I mean, let's say that we had to go in there to make repairs. I mean, we could take those fences down, but we wouldn't have to put them back. You know, so there's a risk. There's a risk to the homeowner.
Right.
I mean, I mean, that's just part
Well,
of it.
and then my final thing is, if we allow these, then how do we say no to anybody else? And coming from, I mean, I live in Birchwood. Before I was ever elected, I pulled a permit to build a fence. And if the permit had been pulled, we wouldn't be here. So I'm sympathetic, and I know that nobody did anything wrong, but I'm kind of up against, I feel like we're up against a wall here on approving something that causes a lot of issues for us later and for future councils. So that's kind of my
Right,
standpoint.
and that's where I'm at, because we still have 12 houses under construction, and other houses that are probably gonna be building a fence. But again, like you
But not
said.
just here,
Yeah.
everywhere.
Well, Drew, all over the city, right, so if you allow it here, as we always say, if what you do for one, you have to do for all. It's always the citizen that gets caught in the middle.
Right.
You know?
This doesn't seem fair to
It doesn't
the
seem-
citizens.
It doesn't seem fair to the
Because there's so many
citizens,
people
correct.
have gotten away with it.
Right,
for
it
so
doesn't
long.
seem fair, but yet we're gotta
Choosing my
look
words carefully,
forward.
God forbid.
And
Tim?
again,
Tim, could you answer a little question? Whose responsibility is it to pull the permit? Is it the contractor, once they are hired?
No,
Well, I mean, ultimately, it's the property owner.
right.
Okay.
More times than not, it is the contractor
Contractor pulls it.
that pulls the permit, and it's the contractor that calls our office to see if a permit's needed.
Mhm.
But ultimately, it's the property owner's property, so.
Well, and Jay, to your example, I agree it isn't fair, but if 50 people speed down 20 and only one is caught, it's still not, they still broke the law. I mean, this is not a law-breaking thing, but I have somebody 3 doors down from me in Birchwood that put their fence in the easement. That wasn't But I actually think it's in the HOA's green space, not the easement. But like, all of us put it right to the line, and this one person didn't. And it doesn't make it right, it just sucks.
Yeah, but I bet, I don't know this, but as a homeowner, when I bought my house, I trusted my fence builder to do the legwork, because I was a new homeowner, didn't know anything about
Most
permits.
people do.
Well, I mean, it's
So
still,
I feel,
I know, I feel terrible, it's awful. I just don't know how to, I don't know how to okay it for,
is there a compromise here between the city and the residents?
Well, what's the liability if it does have a torrential downpour and a neighbor's house floods because their fence is blocking the drainage ditch? That would be my biggest fear.
Liability for the city?
Yes.
So if you were to grant these appeals, our advice would be, and I'm not advocating one way or the other, that's not my job, but if you were to grant these appeals or consider granting these appeals, our advice certainly would be to add a proviso that you're granting the appeal to allow the fence to remain, but subject to the acknowledgement by the owners that the city bears no liability for this acknowledged intrusion into a known, what we call a stormwater management device. I mean, these drainage easements are put in place based upon the hydrology studies, as we know, to determine where water is or isn't going to drain to. So, the granting of the appeal, if you chose to do it, I would make it subject to an agreement with the property owners that they would acknowledge that the city has no exposure or liability for any damage as a result of essentially a blockage or obstruction in the middle of a drainage field.
So
right, but Paul,
I'm
that
tracking.
wouldn't preclude, but you're saying about these people that we allow, these homeowners. Right, but we may have an agreement with them to hold the city harmless, but what if their neighbor is the one that's damaged?
It would have-
Like if the dra-
Well,
if the
that- I mean,
fence-
there's no question about it, so that's the reason why I qualified or clarified the question from Councilman Brandon is the liability exposure that these homeowners may have, and again, I'm not giving them any legal advice, but the liability exposure these homeowners may have to other homeowners from some sort of flooding situation may be significant and great should there be a rain event that could create or cause flooding as a result of an obstruction again, I'm not an engineer.
Right.
But yes, if they were sitting in my office asking me advice, I'd say, yes, you do have exposure because you've acknowledged and sort of voluntarily put something in the way of a drain line.
Seems like that's a little bit of a slippery slope in the fact that a current property owner may sell that property. And then where do we stand if the new owners are not advised of this? Gosh, it's just,
Well, and from what you said, Paul, I mean, I understand where you're headed with that. However, we have an engineer that developed the hydraulic study and the plans for this system. If we come in and say, we'll put provision, we're gonna put that on the homeowner, and something does happen, then you're not gonna pour that engineer back into court either. So you're.
That's correct.
You're
Your mo-
essentially pulling his liability away as well.
The best analogy that I could give you would be you buy a set of building plans to build a house, and the set of building plans says use 2x10s for the flooring, and you just say, I'm just going to use 2x8s, and then the flooring sags. Well, you don't have any the designer doesn't have any exposure because you didn't build it the way you told them that they told you to. It's the same situation here, and that is this was designed for these large rain events. Ironically, here we are today with some weather, again, not being an engineer, when it says don't put any structures in the drainage easement, it's not just for access to be able to maintain, but it's also to make sure that flow's right. And just as a point on that, this is part of the private stormwater management system of this neighborhood. So it wouldn't be the city going in and doing the maintenance and repair. The city has the right to do so if the private property owners aren't properly managing their stormwater management system. So y'all passed your new updated stormwater management ordinance, I believe, in late 2021. And that gets into that where each new neighborhood or property that comes online has to do a stormwater inspection and maintenance agreement, basically for detention ponds and easements of these sorts. So these detention ponds are not owned by you guys. They're managed by either the HOAs or the private property owners. Same thing is true for this, and the same thing is true for this drainage easement. This is a drainage easement on private property. that is in place for the purpose of allowing the entire, what we call the stormwater management system, to properly flow for the entirety of this project. Because ultimately, it's all going to flow into a detention pond, and ultimately, it's going to slow flow, as it's supposed to, out to, public drainage areas such as creeks, which this is, I can't remember the name of this creek here, but so hopefully I've answered your questions.
So
Okay,
that would
so-
put the responsibility onto the current homeowner if like their neighbor floods because of this.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely could.
But Bill, you made a comment about, and this may not apply now, but you made the comment about if we if the city had to go in there and correct something, and we took that fence down, we'd be responsible for putting that fence back up.
No. I said just opposite.
Okay.
We have the right to go in there to take
And
it
take the
down.
fence down, but we don't have to put
We
it back up.
don't have to put it back.
Okay, all right. Sorry, misunderstood.
And, because I've been
Why
out,
is that? Like, is there, what,
Because it's because the fence hasn't been installed properly within the four corners of the easement. So compare that to a sidewalk or a tree or something that, something that's in the right of way and we have to go dig up and change. Or, well, let's compare it to a sewer line that's underneath somebody's backyard, and the sewer line's been dedicated to you guys, and we go and dig and we tear up the sewer line. Now, if they built a storage shed or a playhouse on top of it, we wouldn't have an obligation to address that because the easement is going to say no structures built on top of these. But if there's some rose bushes or azalea bushes, we would have an obligation to fix it. The reason why in this case is because it's built outside of the four corners of our regulations and outside the four corners of the rules of this drainage easement.
even if we backhand approve it, that would still leave our, see that? I mean, because if we say it's okay, then I think we would maybe have to put it back.
So, was it
That's what I'm here
25
for,
years
Paul.
ago, I was in law school, and, they'd take us through all these,
The case you'll never see again?
hypothetical questions,
Right.
and they just keep going and going, and y'all are very good at your hypotheticals that just,
But I've been here 12 years up here, right? 12 years, 10 years, 11, whatever. We've never had this come before us. So I feel for the citizens, and I think there's a compromise we need to come up with. And I know it could happen again, right? But we got to do something, because I think as new homeowners in our city, I don't think they did this maliciously or with intent.
Yeah.
And I think
think any of
that,
us think
I know we're worried about easements and blockages, but there's got to be a compromise.
That's what I was thinking of too. If you don't get a permit, what's the outcome now? There's no penalty or anything? You just have to take it off or take it out? Is there any way we could work in a penalty, to like say maybe, okay, you went over the line, but come before council, see if it's allowed or not, and if it is, then could there be a, I don't know, like a monetary kind of punishment to try and keep people from doing it next time?
so there's been no citations issued for these violations. They've just appealed the decision of the utility department requiring that it be removed. So all that's before you right now is the appeal of their decision. And so you basically have three options. You can uphold their decision, the utility department's and essentially the code office's decision that the fence needs to come down, essentially denying the appeal. You can overturn their decision and allow the fence to stay, or you can do a compromise in between where you can allow the fence to stay with certain conditions. It's no different than a rezone or a variance request where you could say, we'll allow the fences to stay with the following conditions. So those are really your three options. It would not involve any type of monetary penalty. The code office certainly has the authority to cite them on the daily for violations of our development regs. I'm not advocating that, but just in terms of full disclosure, the code office could have cited them and sent them into municipal court for just like any other building code violation. Now, obviously, they haven't, and I don't think that's within their discretion. I don't think they had intended to do that. But that is something they could do, but that's not before you. So this wouldn't be anything involving any sort of monetary penalties.
Brandon, how, because like looking at these, it looks like they're all different. Because they built to their property line on the back. The drainage easement on most of these is in the back of the property, is that correct? And how wide is that drainage easement on most of these? Because we're not asking them to take the sides and the front down, we're just asking them to bring the back up, out of the drainage easement.
I think it's 20 foot. They can bring it to the edge of the drainage easement.
But on average, how wide is that? Yeah, I know there's one that's like a corner, yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it touches the drainage,
Yeah.
it touches their corner.
Yeah, that's why I saw that
They
one,
wouldn't even have a fence line.
yeah.
Well, it'll, some of them can, and then the others, if they were to bring their fence in, it's pretty much gonna take the entire backyard. You're not gonna have much of an area for fence.
No.
so.
But then again, and this is where I keep going, though. If we allow, again, we all agree that citizens are the ones that are getting caught in the middle of this, and we all feel for them because through no fault of their own, this happened. But then how do you sit there and uphold the law to the remaining houses and to the other houses in the city of Loganville? Because, okay, I buy a house and I find out about this happened and then I do mine. I mean, do we open ourselves up to be sued by a citizen who, well, you let it happen in Eleanor Park?
That's what Paul's for.
That's what I mean, are we would be opening up ourselves up to lawsuits
What
moving
about this?
forward?
What if code enforcement didn't notice the fence for 6 months, and they've been in their houses 2 years now, and that just doesn't seem fair to the homeowners. So I just like to compromise for everybody. We got compromise? Nothing? Take it
No.
down there, that's it?
I mean, I'm just going by what the development regs say, and I can only enforce that, but outside of that, with the appeal, it's definitely in y'all's hands now, so.
Can we hear from the homeowners?
It would seem that if the council makes a decision to not authorize this, and it has to be changed, it would seem that it would probably be a civil litigation between possibly the builder or the HOA or conceivably the contractor. But that may be their remedies. But we just need to decide what is our city able to do, and it's a hard nut to crack. Ain't no doubt about that. Nobody enjoys these kind of things, and it's a hard decision to make.
So, you want to open up and see if there's anyone here that wants to speak on it? So do we-
Yes, we might as well.
Yes, please, let's give any of these applicants, any of these, I believe it's 8 appeals, if they just come to the podium, state their name and address for the record, specifically so that we can match up the individuals to the particular address that's being appealed, and then provide any input, any comment that you want to about why you would like your application for appeal to be granted. And there's no specific time limit, but, probably about 5 minutes unless you needed more than that. Of course, that's within the mayor's discretion. But anybody that wants to speak to this issue, these 8 appeals for the Eleanor subdivision, just come
Okay,
up
are
one
you
at a
going,
time.
are you going to speak for all the owners, or,
I'm speaking for myself.
okay, name and address?
My name is Lyra Morris Stokes. My address is 104 Eleanor Park.
Okay.
I think that the appeal should be granted because, as I believe Brandon stated, once this fence is removed or it comes in, we will have absolutely no backyard. The backyard that we actually paid for to be fenced in so that our children can grow and have a normal childhood. Now, at this point, if we have to move those fences, who's going to pay for that compensation for taking my property? He's saying 20 feet. Is he talking about length times width? I don't think so. It's going to be more than 20 feet when you add the full square footage that I'll still have to pay property taxes for, which is unfair. If we're going to take my property for the good of the entire community, then the entire community needs to compensate me for that.
Well, with one exception, and it's okay to say whatever you want, we'll listen, but if that easement is there, on the deed, that shouldn't show as your property. Is that correct, Paul?
No, it's their property. It's just
Okay.
subject to the terms of the drainage easement.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, go ahead.
And also, I heard you all discussing what is the compromise. My only compromise is to allow, the only thing I would accept is to allow the fence to be moved whenever you all need access or whenever the city needs access, but for them to put that fence back. I won't accept anything else.
Can you estimate how far you have to that, your property line? Do you know offhand? You said,
It is, I don't do this for a living, so I'm not a surveyor.
Okay.
But I do know that it's a significant portion of my backyard.
okay.
So on her particular one, there's a 20-foot wide easement on 104.
Yeah, they're all 20 feet in width. They're all,
Okay,
some of them
all
are
right.
40, but they're split between two lots, so they're all 20 feet in width.
Okay.
They're all traversing the back of their lots.
We were
Mo-
looking at how much they had left between their patio and the easement.
Yeah, so most of them, the 20 feet is the very back 20 feet, but this young lady here, there's actually a landscape strip and just a tiny little space. So I would say her lot is approximately 134 and a half feet deep, and I'd say approximately 35 feet deep would go away. That's about right, give or take, without being a surveyor.
I will say, I went out and looked at her property the other day. She let me back there to go look. And hers is a very beautiful fence and everything. And hers actually is a flat, pretty flat backyard, and it stopped, but the fence, after the fence, there's a drop off. So hers actually wouldn't be going into that central one like all the other ones are, blocking. Hers would mainly just be blocking her own yard from draining. So her own fence, and it has some holes at the bottom, hers does. And hers would mainly just be hitting up against her own fence, not blocking or impeding anybody else. Because she's actually one of the first ones on the left when you come in, yep. So hers is off kind of by itself
It's the
compared to
third
all the
house.
other ones that are in the,
Correct, okay.
mm-hmm. And hers was the first one I saw, and that was the reason why I was like, well, this doesn't really make sense to me. Because hers looks like a square backyard with no real blockage at all because of the fence. Now, some of the other ones, not so much, and I got some pictures here on my phone I could send to whoever to take a look at as well. But hers and at least one other, I didn't even see a problem with it blocking any drainage.
Okay. You have anything else to add?
Yes, I just want to add one more thing. There was
Sure.
also I guess it was a suggestion of holding the city harmless from liability. I won't agree to that either.
You would not?
I would not.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. I won't, because what will happen is if something does happen, I will be held liable. And I'm not going to take responsibility for something that I feel that I am literally the victim of. I did everything right. And that's the thing. I didn't even know to pull a permit. That's not what I do every day. But I knew that I had to hire someone who knows what they're doing, and they said that they've been doing this for about 30 years, and you would think, as a professional, that is what you're doing. I'm
I agree.
relying on you.
Have you asked that person why they didn't pull a permit?
I actually did, and
Okay.
depending on what happens here, it will be civil litigation
Okay.
between he and I.
Okay.
If he doesn't come and complimentary move it.
Okay, perfect. No, that's great. Good for you. Thank you.
Because after her
Thank you.
fence, it does.
Yes, ma'am.
go down to a rotation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Nisa Thompson. I reside at 204 Eleanor Way. I do want to make some corrections to the general statements that were said earlier. I know that there are only 8 homes that have appealed, but it is actually more than 8 of us that have fences that were erected without a permit or within a drainage easement. I'm sure your code or your plan and development team should be able to verify that number, but it's definitely more than 8. On my street, there are 7. So 7 houses that I can see on the map that's pulled up. 2 homes are remaining without fences. My questions are, does the city, and I don't know who needs to answer this, but does the city not have building inspectors that come in and, grant permits for the homes to be constructed? Can someone answer that, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. So I bought my house in July of 2022. My fence was erected roughly somewhere between September and October. I got a notice of violation in May. So during that time, homes are still being constructed, and your building inspectors are passing through this subdivision, and nobody notices anything, that fences are being erected, and there's a drainage easement. Can anybody answer that?
Well, I couldn't tell you about that piece, but I do know that the building inspectors only do the building
Okay.
till it gets a CO. Now,
Okay.
from a logic standpoint, I see your point, like why wouldn't they see the fence, et cetera? But I'm sure that they may not be dealing with the drainage easements, et cetera. They're dealing with the actual building. Would that be fair to say?
Good question.
Tim? Were you able to hear the question?
Yes,
Okay.
and our inspector does not issue permits, so he don't know what permits we've issued or what permits are in the pipeline. He only knows what inspections he has to go out and do for that day. But once he has CO'd your house before you buy it, then all the inspections on that house have stopped. You know what I mean? So once you come in and get a permit, and then you call in your inspection, it goes on his calendar, and he goes out and does the inspection. So he don't know what permits we issue day to day.
But does he know code?
And-
Does he understand the code for like your easement requirements? No, he doesn't know that? Is that what you're saying?
No, he doesn't look.
Okay.
That's the utilities department. And to your point on the other fences, we've had, I'd have to look and see how many people have actually came in. Some of them got permitted because they didn't have the easement issue. There's been a couple that have moved their fence to accommodate for their easement issues. And then, you know, y'all are here tonight because y'all wanted to apply for the modification to not move your fences, so.
I just want to be clear. My appeal is not me saying that I don't have a problem adhering to the easement drainage. My issue is the fence is built. I didn't know about it. That's just the honest God. I didn't know that there was an easement there. I didn't know that a permit was required. This is my very first home. So imagine how frustrating this is to me. Imagine how much money was spent on erecting that fence. Imagine that you guys are saying that the HOA is the one that basically should know about this easement. The HOA is the developers, okay? The HOA is the developer. So when I sent in my measurements, yes, it's not their right to tell me that a permit is not required, but when I send in those measurements, should they not have known that those measurements are within the easement? I mean, it's very frustrating. And I'm not saying that in due time, I'm not willing to make that correction, because I'd rather just do it the right way and be done with it and have less stress. But do you know how expensive groceries are? Do you know how expensive gas is? I cannot afford to take my fence down, to bring in my corners right now. I can't do that. To keep a roof over my children's head, I can't do it right this minute. So whatever conditions or you guys can come up with or compromise, I'm at least willing to meet halfway. I don't know what needs to be done. I don't know whether the city can grant some type of waiver. I don't know, but the builders did not. I don't think that, so the folks that I've interacted with, because I cannot speak for anyone else, but the folks that I have interacted with, the sales agent, no knowledge. The folks that we did the walkthrough with, or maybe the building manager, I'm not sure what those titles are, but no one mentioned it. I never received a plat, and I put that in my letter. I never received a copy of the plat when I bought this house. And when I was erecting the fence, before I erected the fence, when I was in the process of submitting HOA approval, I requested a copy of it. but it's not the same as the final plat that was recorded with the deed, because I paid for that one.
If I may, being here tonight and listening to the council, do you see the concerns that the council has to deal with?
I absolutely see their concerns, but I hope that you guys see mine too, because at the end of the day, we're all humans.
Oh, we
We all
understand.
go
It's-
through different trials and issues. And I'm not here to fight you guys. I'm here to tell you right now, I do not have money to move that fence. Not right now. I'm not saying that I can't plan for it, but I'm telling you, I can't move it right now. Unless you want me and my children to be homeless, I can't do it.
I have a question. Did everyone that you know of use the same fence person, or was it different contractors that put up the different fences?
I believe we all use different people, and
Okay.
I am going to say this for the record. I'm not going to specifically mention any names or whatever that may be, but the builder's representative has erected many fences in that neighborhood. Let's just be very clear about that. Okay? At this point, I kind of wish I went with him too. You know why? Because then I could have held the builder a little bit more responsible for that. But I didn't. I chose someone else. So for us to say that the builder knew about it, I don't even know that that's true.
I understand. The contractor, was it a licensed contractor?
Yes.
Yeah.
And again, I understand it's my responsibility to, well, I understand that now, what your requirements are for a permit. I went into Municode. I've been trying to do my research. I've been trying, but this has not been the easiest journey. And again, there's 7 of us, only 2 of the homes on my street, and pretty much only 1 of them were granted a permit. So there's 4 homes with fences on my street that have been impacted, and I'm the only person on my street that filed an appeal. So I think Eleanor Way actually carries around, I'm referencing my immediate street. I'm 204.
Yeah, picture.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question real quick of Tim Prater? What's the time limit to remove or anything like that for a fence or something like that, if we go with it or against it?
So that's up to code enforcement as far as the timeline. I will say that everybody he gave a notice to has come to the office and applied for a permit. That's why it never got to a citation point, because they did try to
They
comply.
tried, yes.
But then we had the drainage easement problem, and that's why they applied for the appeal. But they did try to come into compliance
Okay.
Yes.
once they were notified by code enforcement.
Okay. Yes, ma'am, would you
I
give
have
us?
a quick question.
Okay.
Do we have the option, Paul, to say, since no fines and like 12 months to remove, can we set a lengthier time to remove the fence? Or are we bound by certain times like that?
What's the decision before y'all is whether to uphold their decision to require the fence to be removed or to overturn that decision.
Okay.
That's all that's before
We
you.
don't have any other leeway in there?
That discretion is with your code officer, with your code
Okay.
enforcement officer.
So we have a yes, it's pass, fail.
Correct. Now, but they have discretion on when they can mandate removal, and usually, not just in this situation, but in most situations, you'll find that code enforcement is working towards compliance. And
Okay.
they're trying to do everything they can to avoid fines and municipal
Agreed.
court and all that.
Okay.
They're always just trying to get compliance, and they'll usually work with folks, especially when there are hardship situations in place.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
But we could encourage a time frame for the city manager.
You absolutely can encourage a time frame and communicate that publicly, but ultimately the discretion's with that code enforcement officer. That's correct.
Oh, no worries. I am Tanisha Knight. My address is not on the list. I haven't made it to the appeal process yet. I live at 206 Eleanor Way. That is next door to Ms. Thompson. I erected a fence. My fence has been up since October, November of 2022. So we were all served on the same day back in May. It has been a whirlwind. As you can imagine, for some of us, this is our first time homeowner, first time in the city, yay, yay, yay. But we put up a fence to protect our kids. We have a dog, a nice-sized dog, so I didn't want any issues with my dog. I specifically remember asking the builder during my walkthrough, where can I put my fence, because I knew I had a dog, and I didn't want any issues with my neighbors and my dog. And I was told, you can go to your property line for the liking of your neighbors, maybe go a foot off or so from your property line so you don't encroach on their property line, but go a foot off your property line. We had surveyors come out, we got the land staked off, we had contractors come out, yeah, we can do it, this, hey, don't go too deep in the ground, blah, 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 blah. And that's what we did. We built a foot off our yard. So the area you're talking about, we have an area between, because we were told by HOA we could not share fences, so that's why you got all the spaces between the fences. So, yeah, on the back street. The back street, they do share.
209,
For us in the front, we were told, oh, you can't share, because we wanted to share. So at that moment, when we were getting HOA approval, we were like, okay, we're good to go, because we're doing everything the right way. And then May, we was like, oh, here you go. I don't want to get up here and repeat the same thing over and over again. I did hear where it say, oh, you can just bring your back fence in. Going 20 feet in, you don't just move the back fence. The entire fence will have to come down, because you got to bring in the sides as well. And I know a lot of people don't want to say how much money they spent on their fence. I spent nearly $6,000 on my fence. I am a single parent. I have done well for myself. However, just to get a fence broken down and put back up, I don't have it at the moment, just being totally honest. I'm not here to make excuses. It is what it is. What I am asking for is some type of compromise. We had no idea. Nobody told us. And I can stand here and tell you, I was told to build a foot off my property line. That's what I did. And honestly, if I had known that I would have to give up 20 feet of my yard, I wouldn't even selected a house. It's a new construction area. I wouldn't have paid for a yard that I can't use half of the backyard. That I don't want it to seem as if we're throwing blame or, hey, they told us this, they told us that. But at the end of the day, that is what happened. And yes, we're supposed to know the law. I am here to tell you, I have learned it now, but back then I didn't know. I was going off of people that I have trusted through this whole process. People that, surveyors, they are expertise in, they are experts in their field. We actually went with actual fence builders. They are experts in their field. I don't do any of that. I do public health work. So I'm going off of what I am being told, and I'm trusting people that, are signing off on things and taking my money. And I don't want to feel like I'm blaming y'all. I know what y'all got to do. What I do want to make clear is, it's property that I'm going to have to pay taxes on, but I can't use. So that's still going back and forth in my head, because technically I guess it's not mine if I can't use it. And again, not placing blame. However, I am asking for some type of compromise. I am open to whatever is presented, and I just hope we can figure something out at this point. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Yes, folks. Name and
Hi.
address, please.
Teresa and Dwayne Smith, we at 219 Eleanor Way.
Yeah.
Just basically, as everyone said, you know, as new residents of Loganville, we in good faith thought we were doing our due diligence and abiding by all guidelines to obtain a fence. From, even before we signed the contract, that was one of my number one questions. Can we have a fence? Why? Because I had he deceased now, but a blind dog who I had to protect. So that was my number one question before I even signed the contract. And once they said, yes, you're allowed a wood fence and everything else, you know, the land was perfect. We're back up against the woods, so we're not behind another house. So it was just perfect for us and for our pet. And even during our walkthrough, it was never, ever divulged to us that you are on a water easement and that, or drainage easement, and that you would have to get a permit or that we can't build a fence on it. Because I would have never chosen that lot, because coming up 20 feet will take away half my backyard. So I would definitely never have bought that house if I had known that. And even if I had decided to buy it, I would have gotten a permit if I know I needed one. All I was told was, like everyone else said, build within your property line. We hired a person to come out to do the stakes in the plat on the yard. I don't know how to read that. That's why I hired them. And I also gave it to our licensed fence contractor that was referred by so many people to use. So this is what I'm relying on. I got the HOA approval. I didn't even know I needed a permit. If I'm gonna spend money to do all the things that I did to get that fence, I definitely would have gotten a permit if I know I needed one. And, I mean, and I know someone said that it came out and most of the fences are down to there's a lot of gaps, because ours, I even took a picture, you could stick a broom under a lot of sides of it, that it's definitely not all the way down to the ground on ours. Did you want to say anything?
Well, yeah, it's not down to the ground because we were told to build it like that. They told us do a couple inches above just for drainage, but never were we told about a drain easement. The first we heard about it was when the guy knocked on our door. And the thing that concerned me about that, like the other ladies were saying, was we bought our house in December. We moved in what, January?
And we moved in December, got the fence in January.
But as we were looking, riding through there, we see all these fences. We're like, wow, we can get a fence, this and that. And like they're saying, they've been in their house almost a year. Everybody got these notices at the same time. So it's kind of like, was there nobody checking, or like nobody knew? You know, it's like, it's sad. We understand you guys' situation, but for us, like she said, nobody knew. And like the other neighbor said, there are definitely more than 8 fences out there that I'm sure are not how they're supposed to be. But again, for our case, we're 1 inch in from our property line. We're 2 inches from the ground. We knew nothing about an easement, but if we have to take that fence down and put it back up, we'll have no backyard. Then again, not to repeat others, then we're paying on land that we can't use. You know, we're $6,000 in for a fence, you know?
I did talk to the builder. He came to my house for something else, and I brought up the fence thing, and he was like, yeah, a couple other neighbors I talked to about it too. And he was like, well, you're not, I said, well, you guys never told us that we were on a drain easement. I said, I don't even know what that means even on the plat. Until now I know, but I don't even know what that even means. And he was like, well, you got plenty of room, he kind of like avoided the point to me, but said, you know, he went out there, looked at the fence, he said, your fence is not down to the ground, you got well enough drainage back there that it shouldn't cause any problems. He said, just talk to them, let them know that if something ever happened, they need to get back there, they can. It was just like
Yeah, they just want to sell that.
Right.
yeah, and that's what I'm feeling now. That's what I'm feeling now, what happened, because even during our walkthrough, like I said, I brought up again about the fence. And that's when they said, just make sure they don't build it down to the ground. And we talked about, because we don't have covered porches out there, that we was gonna get a covered porch. Now, he did say, you gotta get a permit for that.
Yeah.
So why didn't you tell me about the fence, if you're gonna tell me about that?
and they told us we had to get a permit if we wanted to get our patio extended. So different things that we asked, they did tell us about permits, but never about the fence. Never about the fence at all. They didn't tell us. You know, and again, we're not here to, you know, cause any problems or anything like that, but I just feel like it should be some type of compromise. And I understand what about future residents, but the subdivision, if you look at it, like you said, you got 12 more houses under construction, but you got so many houses out there already with fences. I feel like it should be some type of compromise. And then maybe put in some type of, like you said, stipulations going forward for everyone else, or however you want to do it, but I feel like it should be some type of compromise for the people who were cited, who did try to come get a permit, but it, of course, was too late.
Right.
But we came, you know, so I just feel like we should be able to make some type of compromise.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
I have a couple of questions. I have some follow-up questions.
Okay, I think she wants to come back just for a second.
Sure. Sure.
I do value your time, so I promise I'll try to be quick. Am I allowed to share a picture?
Sure? Sure. I mean, is it decent?
Yes.
That's good, Ann.
I am not a subject matter expert on drainage easements, but
Can you, let Kyle can maybe put it up on the screens. He's back there at the,
Kyle just, oh, wait, yeah.
I'm gonna turn you, no. I'm gonna punch you with a pie.
Tim, can I ask you a question right quick?
Yes, ma'am.
Had they come and applied for a permit, would you have told them about the drainage easement? I mean, is that something that you would have pointed?
Yes,
Is that,
that's
I'm just trying to see what,
That's exactly what happened.
Okay.
Once code enforcement went out and gave them notices of violation and told them they had to get a permit for their fence, because code enforcement, he didn't know anything about the drainage easement either. He just knew they didn't have a permit for their fence.
Right.
So when they started coming into their office, into our office, that's one of the things we check is the HLP and the final plat to see where the drainage easements are.
Right.
And once, you know, we pulled their HLP and seen they had drainage easements and they had already drawn, you know, where they put their fence up, it's like, well, we can't approve this because you got your fence in the drainage easement. And, you know, your options are you need to move your fence, or you can apply for an administrative modification, which is what they did, and that, all that, then it went to the utilities department.
now, have you seen, because I think you were one of the ones, you got a survey for your land, right?
I did.
Did y'all see the surveys, the surveyors that they used, did they not mark any drainage easements on there? What I'm trying to do is figure out how we can prevent this moving forward, and if it all,
Well, and you know, I don't know when it changed, but back when I bought my first house, you got a plat of your property.
Right.
Apparently, they don't do that anymore.
Right.
You know? Which I think is strange.
Yeah.
Everybody should have a plat of their property. But with each permit, we do have an HLP, which is the house location plan, and it shows all the drainage easements on their application to build the house.
but the surveys that the individuals, the homeowners paid for, have you
No,
seen
it
those?
just showed the
okay.
property lines.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So, like I said before, they tried to come into compliance. You know, they really did. As soon as they got the notice of violation, they came to the office to get a permit.
I'm not gonna give you mine, because I'm gonna get you. Just kidding. I have a question for you, Tim, and I know you can't say what people knew and didn't know, but when the developer brought the plat to your office and you talked about plans and easements and drainage, is it fair to say that builders know about these easements before they plot the houses, et cetera? I'm like, it's not, they do this for a living, right? Are you on? I don't think you're on. You're, or maybe your battery ran out.
Yeah, so you have the developers that do the final plat for the subdivision that shows all the drainage easements. Sometimes the developer is the builder, sometimes they just sell the property off.
Right.
Either way, we require them to give us a HLP for each lot that
Okay.
shows the drainage.
You
on it.
require them to give it to you?
The builder, yes.
builder had to give it to
That's part
you.
of their building permit package, is the HLP, and that's what y'all have in your packet
builder
that
knows.
shows the
So,
property
okay,
owner.
all right, so here's,
Well, they might not know that we require a fence permit. A lot of
the
places.
fence permit, no,
a
but the
lot of
drainage
places
easement,
don't.
they would have absolutely known about.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so I have an idea. Because we can do more. Wait a minute. We can do more than pass or fail this. We can table it. Can't we?
Yes, you absolutely can table it. It's only here for discussion tonight for y'all to address, but you absolutely can table it.
So here's my position, and I'm going to be real candid with the homeowners. If I had to say yes or no right now, I'd say no because of what it opens the city up for as we move down the line liability-wise, okay? But what I am hearing, what I feel, is that the developer or the builder, whoever got you your houses, knew about this potentially maybe, and I know I can't say what people know or didn't know, but it seems to me that he knew or she knew about this easement. And not only do we have the 8 of you, you say there's how many more?
Some more.
I mean, how many are there? 10 more? 15 more?
There's a lot with fences when we went.
A lot of fencing. Okay, there's a lot of fencing, and some were permitted. But how many of you are new homeowners? So at least, do we know the rest? I mean, your neighbors, how many of them are new homeowners?
About first-time homeowners?
First-time homeowners.
I'm a first-time homeowner.
So we have a builder that it seems to me may have not been completely forthright about what's going on. So here's my position. Can we table this with the support of planning and zoning and what documents were sent and admitted to planning and zoning a long time ago about the plats? Can you guys get together as an HOA and as homeowners and go after the builder and let us table this until we get some sort of resolution? Can we do that?
You can table to an indefinite period of time. You certainly have that authority. You absolutely have the ability to table to either, well, no, you can table it indefinitely, and then it can be brought back up upon motion of this council.
Well, I don't want to table it indefinitely. I mean, I think we have to deal
Then you
with
can
it.
table it to a date specific.
How do y'all think about that? What do you think?
Well, that was originally what I said. It sounds like the developer or the builder caused this problem, and he needs to foot the bill or fix the problem, and I would be willing to give them time to go
Yeah, I mean,
after him.
But the problem is, if the builder is still around, is he still doing the same?
Yeah, they're still building.
They're still building, so it's the same and the same builder's building the whole.
Right, it's DRB,
Community.
Well,
and
but
he's
here's
building
the
the
thing.
entire neighborhood.
So most HOAs don't turn over from the builder, because we know this from an old neighborhood,
what-
until it's 95% complete.
Ours is 100, I verified
Yours is
that.
100?
Yeah.
Okay. Does he have any more permitting to do? Do we have any power to hold him hostage? I don't mean that sincerely. I mean, but like to do something with the permitting options
I would
until
have
he
to-
addresses this?
I would have to look and see if there's any more lots outstanding to be permitted, but they're still building, so we're still doing inspections.
Yeah, there's still 12 houses under construction.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Wait, you gotta come up here. Ms. Stokes, right? Yes. Okay.
I know that I said that those were the only two things that I would compromise with, but I really like your suggestion on tabling this. And I think, I already plan to sue the builder because they sold me my property with an encroachment. And it's evident. I said something to them after we closed and they just was like, oh, whatever. So I already have problems with them, and also the way the home was constructed. Is there a way that we can at least table this for at least 6 months? And the reason why I'm asking is because if we're going to do any civil litigation or anything to push them, it's going to take time to get through the Superior Court.
I wouldn't support 6 months. I would support 30 days. I like that you negotiate them.
But they're in
Only
what-
to
don't
keep
forget, they're
it
in
coming
what-
up every 30 days to keep it active and visible. If we wait 6 months, we have some potential action or leverage, or we could talk to, we still have a relationship as a city with the builder.
Okay.
So what I'd like to see us move forward is, I mean, tell me if this is okay or not, but table this for 30 days, give code enforcement time to talk to the homeowner representatives, like, you guys got to do some homework, like, who does it apply to? Oh, there's a picture, your picture's up here finally. Like, who does it apply to? How many homes are in the easement? Because really, here's the thing, you still have use of your property, you just can't have it used fenced. Like, you could put a garden there, you could put all kinds of stuff there, you just can't, you can't fence it off.
It would take longer to move
No,
shrubbery
no,
than
no, I know,
fence.
but I mean, the argument that you don't have use of your property, you do have use of the property, you just can't fence it. So, what is this?
Can't put a building on it either.
So I've been staring at this picture for 2 days because I'm trying to identify where that easement is. That backyard is very flat. There is no visible evidence of an easement.
And the other just isn't the.
I want you to like zoom in, look at my neighbors, the land or the homes that are directly to the left of me. Where is the easement?
It's not marked, it's just it's on the plats.
It's not a
I
marked
hear your
easement, it's
position.
just a
But it's
flat
the-
surface. So if that's the rear of your property, that's probably the center line of the easement, and it goes 20 feet in both directions.
Right. So it's
Be like-
40 feet off that
Yes,
back
it's not
line,
gonna have
20 on each
like a
side.
traditional stop that says.
So
this
it's
is
not
an
going to
easement.
have like a
No.
slight slope
No, it's
or a
based on
ditch or?
the hydrology that the engineer did for this subdivision, and it bases on the slope.
So, okay, by looking at this picture, and I'm not an engineer, I'm trying to understand this. I'm up here just confused, not knowing what I'm talking about. I'm really trying to understand this. So I'm looking at this picture, and the land looks pretty flat to me.
Sure.
Where's the water going?
It has all to do with hydrology and the way water flows.
And the soil, everything.
Yeah, the soil.
You're saying there's
Okay.
not a big hill, it's not easy to see that it runs downhill.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
get it.
I would say, and to be fair, the home that is directly behind of me, they moved in maybe several months ago. Their fence was recently erected. They were able to obtain a permit. They were able to erect the fence the correct way, because technically on my lot, I only have to bring in my corners. But that's not to take away from my other neighbors that are losing more than I am. However, the neighbor directly behind of me was able to do everything correctly, because guess what? I told him. I did something for him that nobody did for me.
Right.
And I understand that all of you are up here saying that, you know, what about the other neighbors? I'm sure they will understand that most of us did not have the understanding that they have now, okay? Most of them, we talk. We all talk.
Well, yeah, I mean, you guys unfortunately went before them and you're getting hit for it. I get it. I just, but I think that I think that you guys may have an action that you can take, but it's gonna take you some time. So my idea would be to table it for 30 days and let's see what they can come up with.
Well, wouldn't it also be
Thank you for your time.
twofold for the fence builders not pulling permits? Because wouldn't it also be on the fence builders who didn't pull the permits?
No, because still
Or
it's up to the
more so the
homeowner.
developer?
Because like when I did the fence in Birchwood, he's like, we don't need a permit. I'm like, I think we do. And we
You're off
do.
on 20. You know what I would do? I'd stand out there with signs, don't buy a house in here.
Yeah, I mean,
And watch how fast.
well, and y'all have to think about what you want.
No, seriously.
Like, do you want the builder to move the fence for you? I mean, you can't
They got
undo the
nothing.
purchase of the property and undo the easement. I mean, like, that's a whole different issue. But, like, if you want him to move the fence, whoa.
What's going on here? That's a first.
But please be aware, the council is not here to give you legal advice.
Right, of course
We're not
not.
attorneys.
That's Paul's job.
What we're saying, I think, is our thought processes are going along, but it may very well be that you guys may have to get an attorney, or you may have to sit down and talk to the builder and make him come to some kind of realization. But I don't know that I would suggest you go out front with signs. I don't know what kind of complications that would cause. I just don't know.
Well, and.
But I don't want all of you up here have to go get you out of jail either.
I'm also on board with tabling though, Ann.
Well, and my position is get the builder to pay to move your fence, because ultimately, I think that's what has to happen. The fence can't be in the drainage, because it sets a precedent for us citywide about what we allow or not, so go get them, but let's give you some time to do it. That's my thought.
Thank you, Ann. And just thank every one of you for coming and speaking with
Yeah.
us today. It's real important. You understand the difficult situation that we have. I will say it's an uphill battle, and not battle. I mean, as far as, you know, you have to realize our position, and our position right now for the most part, is something's got to be done. And so it's really incumbent upon you to try to go ahead and get together. There's other homeowners that aren't here. Like Ann said, y'all might want to go ahead and grab an attorney and talk to your builder and see if you can leverage that and come back with the council so that we can try to move this forward. But thank you very much. I think 30 days. I mean, I would almost like to go 60, just to kind of give them a little, right. I think 60 days, that gives them a little time to try to get the other homeowners involved. Is that reasonable?
Absolutely, it's your discretion, so it'd be October.
Okay.
Table it into
So
the.
that's the October meeting, though, so,
October work session.
work session. So,
If y'all want to table, let's make a formal motion on that so we can have that on the record, please.
I
we
move we
vote on it
table this
tonight?
for 60 days. Do we motion tonight, even though it's a work session?
All our meetings are on our Facebook page.
Yeah, you
or City of
you
Logan.
Or on the
absolutely can
city
table
page.
it tonight if you want to. You can wait till Thursday to table it as well,
Well,
but you
let's do it.
certainly have
The
the
city
authority to do
council meeting is always the second Thursday. The work session will be the Monday previous to that second Thursday. And that's every month.
It's very confusing.
Yes, it is.
so,
The second Monday and
So-
Thursday.
Okay, if we can have a motion, we'll go ahead and take care of it tonight. We don't need to put it off.
I'd like to make a motion to table this till the October work session.
Second.
The appeal.
Okay? We have a motion. Do we have a second?
And
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, it's tabled till the October work session, which is on October 9th.
October 9th. Sure, thank you.
But I still don't believe y'all have an easy road to hoe. I mean, you all know that. I hope it works out well.
All right, I have one other item on my agenda. So there's the turbines that, blowers for the aeration system at the septic station have failed. These blowers are 23 years old. Brandon looked at the cost of replacement. I think it was upwards of 300,000 or whatever. The recommendation is just to go ahead and do the repairs. The repairs are $62,535, and I'd like to put that on consent. Is there anybody questions?
Well,
or
I
any-
did have a question because I asked Danny, and did you follow up on that? Do you know what the warranty for the rebuild is?
That's what I was going to ask.
Have not got that back. I will see if I can get Mike to get that from the company.
And then the cost of the new was, what'd you say, Bill?
The cost of
300
new was
grand.
over 300.
Was what?
300 grand.
300,000.
Right, because that was because we have to do some modifications. There's not a direct retrofit. Is that correct, Danny?
Yes, it was to go with a new system. I think there was some more wiring that had to be done. And Brandon, was it another building too, or just wiring? Panel, thank you.
Okay,
Brandon, can you get that warranty for a new one
okay.
and a warranty versus the rebuild,
Yes.
which
So
won't
I-
be much?
I presume you've done this as emergency, or are you waiting on us?
You haven't purchased it yet, have you now?
But with our
No.
septic down, we're not accepting.
It's still running, it's just not efficient, correct? It's not running also, yeah, we're not. We'll let the expert talk. More than I am.
The septic station's currently operational. We're still allowing septic haulers to come in and out, but that basin, that digester, without the blower, just unable to really aerate properly, and everything will just settle on the bottom. So we're trying to rush this, but we can get it back fully operational instead of limping along, is what we're doing right now.
Do they give you an estimate on time for repair? It's not Germany, is it?
No.
Oh,
no,
good.
Not for a rebuild, no.
Is Thursday okay?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, they've been down for a month or so now, so.
Okay, so
Okay.
do we want to put that on consent agenda again? Is that what you're going to request?
I'm good with consent.
Everybody
else?
good with consent?
Yep.
Okay, consent agenda. Okay, very good. Thank you, Brandon.
I have no other items.
Well, you've had enough.
Yep.
Wow. Working us tonight. Okay, we'll go now to Public Works Facilities Committee. Melanie Long.
I have nothing tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Go to Economic Development Committee, Brandon Whitfield.
I also have nothing tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Except for Battle of Bands.
I was gonna, upcoming this month, we do have Battle of the Bands this weekend on Saturday, and we have Fire Lake coming August 18th. But Thursday, I'm gonna do a little bit more about them. But that's our two big events this month. And sign up is also available for vendors at Autumn Fest. So if you know any crafty people that would like to have a booth, please call Christy and, she'll, get you the information.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Brandon. Now we'll move to Danny Roberts, City Manager.
No time, going to city attorney.
Okay, we'll move right along. City Attorney's updates.
I'll try and be as quick, but not quite.
don't
You
think
got
you're
several
gonna make it.
ordinances before you tonight, but just to follow up on what we talked about last month, in the process to give more time for these ordinances to marinate between staff and between you guys and my office, we'll bring them to you sort of in month one. We're in month one on these. And then we'll bring them back to you in month two for action. That gives plenty of time for staff to review. So for instance, today from Chief Lowry, I got an email about one issue on the criminal trespass ordinance, item A, that we're gonna need to dig into because y'all are split between Gwinnett and Walton County, so just different things. So when they're coming before you on the Monday night, I'll highlight them real quick, and happy to highlight them again on Thursday if you want. But basically, month one, they're gonna come up before you, they're gonna be available for you. Our ordinances, when they come to you, essentially they'll be as they are, italicized words will be added and strike-through words will be deleted. I'll just hit all of these real quickly and tell you what they're for. The criminal trespass update is essentially to allow us to have park hours on our parks, and once we post the park hours, then anyone occupying the parks outside of those park hours, then the officers have the discretion to write a ticket for criminal trespass on the city parks. So they can't enforce it until, obviously this is passed, and can't enforce it until we post park hours. Normal park hours that you see around sort of what we call passive parks are sunset to sunrise to sunset are the park hours, so outside of that. That's A. B is an addition to the disorderly conduct ordinance, which is a standard disorderly conduct, and we just added a defecation urination prohibition in there, very standard and normal. C is an open container update. There's actually no change to this ordinance, just to be clear. All we are doing is cleaning up a conflict between Chapter 4 and Chapter 22. You have an open container prohibition in Chapter 4. You also have an open container prohibition in Chapter 22 that allows some exceptions, and those exceptions are for the Rock Gym, the Town Green, and the Main Street District. But because those exceptions are not also spelled out in Chapter 4, then there's conflict, and we're just cleaning that up. So it's just clear that open containers are not allowed, excepting and only if in the Rock Gym Convention Center area, the Town Green area, or in the Main Street District area.
Okay, I do have a question about the open container
Sure.
thing. It's page 41 in our packet. It's section 22-52. Down at the bottom, right at the bottom, it says alcoholic beverages consumed within the confines of the town green must be in a plastic container. No glass or cans are allowed. Also, on the next page, at the bottom, that line too, it says alcoholic beverages consumed within the confines of the Main Street District must be in plastic or aluminum container. And I know we have a lot of concert goers that come, that are drinking, they're bringing wine bottles and cans. So what I'm asking, is this directed at the people that are selling the
No.
wine wagon thing? Or is this even the attendees? Are they not supposed to be drinking out of cans and glass at our concerts?
So these are for the attendees. So the regular text is what's already there. So that's how your ordinance is currently
Right, and that's-
written. And so I know there was some confusion or question about, well, what about beer cans or beer cans allowed? Currently, as it reads, in the Town Green and the Historic Rock Gym, they're prohibited, but in the four corners of the Main Street District, plastic and aluminum containers are allowed. That's totally up to y'all. That's a great example of something of like, hey, wait a minute, all right, we're cleaning this up, but here's another thing we'd like to clean up. So if it's y'all's desire to clean that up and just say, no glass containers just for the glass safety, but it can be plastic or it can be aluminum or, beer cans.
Right, because I know we're
then we
not
can do that.
enforcing it, so that's what I wondered, do we need to address that in here?
I would encourage you that if you're not enforcing it, then let's take it out,
Okay.
right? That's usually the rule, is if you're not enforcing it, take it out. So if the beer cans is something we need to clean up, then we'll just make a few edits to it between now and next month. It'll come back to you with those changes. And this gives us time between now and next month. If you think of something else, you shoot me an email and we continue to clean it up.
But it's
I
just
believe
for-
we need to absolutely take glass out of it. There's no doubt.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
And the cans are aluminum, and the clear cups, I think both of them are fine for now. But once we have some restaurants downtown that we may have to monitor, that would be the time to make that change, in my opinion.
Okay, so we can certainly make those changes. The next one is a public intox ordinance. This is a very standard ordinance. It almost mimics and models the state public intox ordinance. All it does is just put another tool in the belt of your police to have the ability to cite someone under a local ordinance for public intoxication on public right-of-ways. The last ordinance that's coming before you is a very technical ordinance, really doesn't do anything, it just cleans up something. Your charter says that all ordinances must be read, and this just clarifies that once we publish them, once we put them out there, that a technical exact reading of the ordinance isn't required unless one of you asks for it. And then if you do, you get the lovely pleasure of hearing me read the ordinances nearly verbatim. So all that is just to clarify that ordinances are considered and deemed read once they've been published, once they've been made available on the agenda, and they're ready for the public to consume and look at. So all that is just another cleanup. So those are the only things that I have on the agenda for you tonight. I do have one other shameless plug, if I might. Many of y'all may know that Walton County is bringing online a Humane Society. So the Humane Society of Walton County is up and going. For those of y'all in code enforcement and law enforcement know that animal control struggles with where do we take these, little pups and all that. So the inaugural the inaugural fundraising event is going to be a charity benefit concert for the Humane Society on August 26, 2023. And the really shameless plug is my daughter and her band are going to be the entertainment for that night. So if you want tickets, it's humanewalton.org. humanewalton.org. Tickets are $25. Free food all night and free non-alcoholic beverages, and then there'll be a cash bar, and all of the proceeds of the ticket sales and all the proceeds of the alcohol, it's all been donated, is going to go straight to raise money for the new Humane Society. It's going to be at the Engine Room in Monroe. Tickets are $25, humanewalton.org.
I have a report on that.
Okay.
So my cat, I have a cat, and she's chipped, she's got a collar, she belongs to Home Again. So she went missing, and I'm very attached to my cat. Couldn't find my cat. Call, couldn't find the cat. She would come home, come home. So I get this knock on the door. Get this knock on the door, and here's an animal control officer standing at my door with the cage with my cat in the cage. So he said, I admire you, I thank you for having your cat chipped. He said, I always check, and our officers always check to see if they're chipped. If they're not, even if they have a collar on, most likely they go to the pound. He said, so anybody that has cats that you think are not going to roam off of your property, they are. So he brought her home. I gave her a good scolding. Whether it's going to do any good or not, I don't know. But I was so thankful that they brought her home and didn't take her to the pound. And they also called Home Again, and they told them who she belonged to. I mean, she had her name on her collar and all that, but they told her the address and all that. So I was just going to say that they did an excellent job, animal control.
So
and
the
I
whole,
think this is-
so the whole goal is to get a Humane Society shelter stood up. The plan is to have it stood up in a temporary location in the next 90 days. There's been a piece of property already identified. I'm not on the board, but I'm friends with, and some clients are several of the board members, and they're doing a great job. So we're just helping them get their inaugural event kicked off, and I'm a little biased because she's my daughter, but I like to hear her sing, so she's going to be singing. So if y'all want to come out, I got flyers I brought for everybody. So thank you, Mayor. That's all that I have.
Well, we need to ask a question.
All right?
These items that you have brought up, do we need to take action on them Thursday?
No. We'll
So they're
take
gonna
action
come
on
up
them next month.
In September.
That's correct. That gives us time to make any edits, clean up anything. And that's the process that I'll bring before you moving forward on other ordinances. That'll give more time for the mayor and council, and more importantly, not that y'all aren't important, but for staff to process any changes and tweaks that we need to come up with.
Okay. When we talk about these, it would be my personal feelings that we need to talk to Chief Lowry and get his input on some of these things, because he and his team are the ones that's going to have to enforce or not enforce. I am not interested in passing ordinances that cannot be enforced. I think it's just a waste of time, but just so you know where I stand.
Yes, and absolutely. I mean, if Chief Lowry wants to add anything to these ordinances, happy to hear from him tonight or or Thursday. It gives us plenty of time to work through those. Right. But yes, it would be his office that would be enforcing these, because they're all in the form of sort of what we call public control ordinances.
Chief, just real quick, does it help you at all for us to put in ordinances that you can enforce?
No, I mean, an unenforceable ordinance is just that. It's something that won't be enforced. I think in looking over these, the main question that I had for Paul and with Danny was on the criminal trespass and the park hours. And there's something obviously he's got to dig into. There's quite a bit of difference between the Walton County court and judicial system and the Gwinnett County, because Gwinnett has a state court and Walton doesn't. And that may very well affect whether or not we can include Gwinnett. And the reason I ask that, quite honestly, the part that we have the most complaints about and issues after hours like that is on the Gwinnett side. So that's why I want to see if that's something that we can address, and if there's a way to do that within the guidelines of law, I'm confident Paul will find that. But yes, anytime there's anything that would be enforced by the police department and now code enforcement, then certainly I'm going to take a deep look at it and think about how the process of enforcing that would be, and if there is an issue, then I'll certainly bring it to Paul.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, now is the time that we have a little bit of time to have community input. Of course, it's limited to 5 minutes, and we're supposed to have somebody keeping time. It's on the computer up there. Bill Duvall asked me earlier if he could have a moment during community feedback, since he is part of our community, to make an announcement on his part, and then we'll move to the others. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just to say that, it's for almost 30 years I worked for Georgia DOT and had a wonderful career. And 4 years ago I ran and became part of this city council, and I've really enjoyed, it's been, coming into it, we were right at the end of the development downtown, turned right around from that, went into COVID. COVID really shut us down. I really like to see that we are moving forward, and I'm really proud to be a part of it. And I just want to say that I'm looking forward to the opportunity to represent this city again. So I'm going to run for city council coming in August.
Okay. Very good.
Thank you.
Very good. Anyone else out there? Yes, sir. Okay, okay.
For those that don't know me, my name is Joyce Davis. I live at 4421 Pecan Street, Loganville. I have some concerns. I didn't dress for this occasion because I didn't know I was really coming. I was working in the yard, and I said, Lord, if this rain will stop so I can ride down there, I want to get there. Because this is the only place I know that I can present these. I don't know who else to go to. Hello, Mr. Paul. A long time since I've seen you. I'm concerned about the caution lights at the crosswalk on Main Street. Now, I don't know if that happened when the filming crew, when they took it down, but when it went back up, it's not connected. And on the east side of Main Street, it does not work at all. If you, on the west side to go across Main Street, it only works on the pole, on the west side, not on the east side. If you're not a walker or like me now, rider, you wouldn't understand. Cars don't even see you when you're in the middle of the street. I have to wave and holler, hey, wait. And sometimes they're down at the Methodist church before they even look around. Oh, my goodness, I almost ran over somebody. So I'd appreciate it if something could be done about those caution lights. I'm not the only one that uses it. Also, I know this is the Georgia DOT's problem.
It is a state
but
road.
that crosswalk is very dangerous for anyone walking, anyone on a walker, anyone on a motor scooter. It has large cracks and holes that if you're not very careful, you can have a really bad accident. This might cost the city a lot of money if somebody does and has to sue. So I think it's a very important thing that somebody get a hold of somebody and get this street fixed. I think the big heavy vehicles might have a lot to do with it. Another concern, I've only got two more. The sidewalks need to be on at least one side of a street, the way I see it. Now, I'm only 84, and I know back in my day, we didn't have these problems in Loganville. But now the traffic is really heavy on these streets, and a person walking. Now, when I ride my buggy here, I have to get off of the road, and sometimes I have to put my foot down on the ground to keep from going over, terrain, because there's nothing there for us to protect us from these cars. And I ride it with oncoming cars. My son said that I'm doing against the law when they could lock me up and confiscate my, rider, but that's not gonna help the person that's walking and might get run over because the cars are going so fast. And so I would appreciate if y'all could try to get us a sidewalk at least on one side of each street on the east side of Loganville. Now, the west side has got one walking till you get to Floyd Road here, and then you're on the street. So I know y'all don't want this for the people in Loganville. If we have a walk-around park and people walk to get there, they're gonna have to go on the street to get there, and that's gonna be dangerous. So I think the street needs to be took care of, and the sidewalks, maybe before we get all these luxury, things that's going on. So that brings me down to just one that's probably none of my business, but I thought about it, and it doesn't bother me that a library will go up on Main Street, but I was wondering, since it's city's property that is being donated, and I believe I've been paying taxes for over 50 years, so I believe that the citizens, have maybe a little right. If they make the library and then later on decide that they need to get another library somewhere else, if that property in the working of the legal could stay with the city and be used for any city public function that, it could be, instead of losing it, because it is prime. And I'm just so thankful to be here, but y'all forgive me, and I am going to try to get myself back home before that other storm comes in, and thank you for listening.
Appreciate
to
your
me.
effort to get here. Danny, do you know the
Yep, so-
intersection?
So to answer your questions, the first one is the library. So if the current library, if they go to a new library, that's still a city building. The city council has control of the current library, the new library, and if they build another one in my lifetime, they'll still make control of that library. So that's to answer your question. To answer your question on sidewalks, it's a money thing. It's sidewalk, concrete is extremely expensive. We did do a study to do what's called the N-gap for Loganville to connect the sidewalks. It was somewhere around $29 million for those sidewalks. We are looking at putting sidewalks on some other parts of the city. And then also to answer your question about the caution lights, we've called Ask State to fix them. They will not fix them. They are illegal. They do not want them on the road because we had one get hit by a DUI driver and we went to go get a permit and they denied us. So the ones we have are illegal. So now if the mayor and council tells me to put it up, I will put it up. But it is the state's right away and they have to give us permission.
Yeah, I don't think we've got the option to go on a state.
No, we don't.
Right away.
So, but yes, we will get the ones working though. You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Sir, you're walking the wrong direction if you want to speak. Good. Thanks for being here. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Bill Williams, and I am a member of the Planning and Development Commission and a 5-year resident of the city of Loganville. I'm here tonight to declare my candidacy for city council member. And like I
Good.
said, I'm a U.S. Air Force veteran. I've worked in emergency medicine for 20 plus years in the state of Florida. And previously was a 911 dispatcher. Currently, I work for Georgia Department of Transportation. I work in the traffic safety area, so that adds another little areas of expertise. And I'd like to see the city help the city and control growth, and like to help redevelop the downtown area. And I look forward to everybody getting out and voting November 7th. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you, Bill. It's nice to citizens to have choices. Very good. Anyone else tonight? Sir? You've done great sticking with us. Thank you.
And Mayor and Council, just to clarify, that was my error. On public comments, they are 5 minutes, not 3 minutes. Y'all passed what we call a decorum ordinance resolution last year, and those are limited to 5 minutes. So we'll get that corrected for the next agenda. That's on me.
Okay, so Thursday night, that won't be on the agenda.
Correct.
Right.
Your public comments are usually reserved for your work sessions.
Okay. All right, with that said, do we have a motion to adjourn? We have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Meeting is now adjourned. Thanks, everyone, for being here.